Hey everyone, my name is Sam Collins. Today I'll be presenting my persuasive speech for the public speaking class at Clark State Community College. My topic will be financial education. So, only 17 states in America require their high school students to take a financial literacy class. And of these 17 states, only 5 of them receive an A grade for their efforts in teaching financial literacy. So, today I'm going to be talking to you about why I feel this is an issue, why I feel that financial literacy classes should be mandatory for high school students. I'll also discuss some of the arguments against mandatory financial literacy classes, and also I'll talk about some of the progress that is being made for the advancement of financial literacy within high schools. So before I talk about why I believe this, I would like to first talk about what exactly financial literacy is. It is the ability to understand how money works in the real world. Examples of this would be balancing a checkbook. Things like that can help you avoid debt. Knowing how to apply for a loan. I know a lot of us are seeking higher education, and this is something generally we all have to do. They're granted from a bank, usually at an agreed upon interest rate. And another example of financial literacy would be understanding credit. This is essential for buying a home, a car, or getting those loans I talked about above to seek a higher education. And your credit is essentially a history of your financial trustworthiness. So, in a 2015 study conducted by CNBC, 70% of millennials were reported to say they plan to spend less than $36,000 upon retirement. And that may not sound like much, but when you compare it to the fact that the average annual expenses for retirees reach far more than $46,000, you begin to question how financially literate this generation is. So, now that I have talked to you about what exactly financial literacy is, I would like to talk to you about some of the reasons why I feel high schools should focus more on financial literacy. The first being that millennials today are making less money. According to MarketWatch.com, the average 30-year-old today makes the same amount of money a 30-year-old did in 1984. That does not account for inflation, so we are essentially making less money than the generation before us. Another reason why I feel high schools should teach more about financial literacy is that students and millennials are not planning for the future. A recent report from PwC shows that only 34% of millennials report to be saving for retirement. And that's pretty concerning if you ask me. A third reason why I feel like high schools should focus more on financial literacy is that many individuals are struggling with debt. Another report from PwC reports that more than 50% of college students and graduates feel their debt is an overall financial burden that they were not prepared for. Personally, this is something I can relate to, as I feel that when I got into the real world and started looking at getting a new car or potentially buying a house, it's just all this information that I had no clue about, and it was pretty concerning, to say the least. So, now that I've talked with you about some of the reasons why I feel like we should focus more on financial literacy within high schools, I would like to talk about what the opponents of mandatory financial literacy classes have to say. The first being that there's little academic agreement upon which financial instruction works, and to implement a instruction like this, you'd have to have unanimous agreement throughout the states. And that's something I can understand would be pretty difficult, but I think the positive effects of having all of our students be financial literate would greatly outweigh the difficulty in implementing that. The second reason that opponents of financial literacy being taught in schools talk about is that there's not enough instructors. They talk about how only a small percentage of instructors within high schools feel like they are qualified to teach a financial literacy class. And my argument for this would be that we need to just implement some kind of instruction or classes that can help teach these instructors how to talk about financial literacy. And finally, a third reason opponents of this bring up is that concepts of financial literacy are not included in the ACT or SAT. And this plays a huge part in it, in that our teachers essentially are preparing us to take the ACT and the SAT. So they exclude a lot of this information because it's not included in those tests. So Now that I've talked to you about what some of the opponents have to say about teaching financial literacy within high schools, I'd like to talk to you about how it is advancing and that there is hope for our students becoming more financial literate. There is widespread agreement emerging. According to Time Magazine, over 90% of adults now believe that financial literacy classes should be mandatory for high school students. There's also the development of these programs. With this unanimous agreement has come the emergence of nonprofit programs and financial firms that are working to create guidelines for financial education that will hopefully cross from state to state. And the last reason I believe that there's hope is that we all can make a difference. We are fortunate enough to live in a country where we can speak our mind and say what we want. So I encourage you guys, if you feel as passionate about this topic as I do, to maybe write to your state senators or your local school boards and talk to them about how you feel financial literacy is something that lacks a focus within our high schools. So, in conclusion, I've discussed with you guys what exactly financial literacy is and how I personally feel it lacks an importance among our nation's educational system. I've talked about some of the arguments non-supporters of such curriculum might have in my response to them. I noted that there is progress being made to promote financial literacy, but I want to reiterate and stress that we can farther push the advancement of this type of curriculum by speaking out, writing to our state politicians, voicing our opinion, and writing to our local school boards. In closing, I encourage you all to do these things if you feel this topic to be important. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.